For the screen. Maybe?
Yes.
Okay, everyone, we are now streaming, so I'd like to call the Town of Rochester Town Board May business meeting to order. If you could all stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Kate, can you do the roll call?
Councilwoman Alba. Present. Councilman Coleman.
Here.
Councilman Sweet is absent. Councilman Nguyen.
Present.
Supervisor Nevin.
I'm here. So the first item on our agenda is the acceptance of the agenda. Lucky for the board, I have a lot of edits which are shortening the agenda with some wishful thinking. So I'd like to make a motion that the town board accepts the agenda as prepared by the town supervisor with the following amendments. We are going to table resolutions M, P, S, T, and for resolution U, we will have a discussion regarding the appointment of particular persons in executive session. And we may or may not do that after executive session. Are any other amendments? Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Our first item on the agenda is the continuation of the public hearing of local law E of 2026. This is a local law that is imposing a moratorium on battery energy storage systems. We initially opened this hearing in March, I believe, and closed it. The board discussed some changes. We made changes and are considering adopting version 2.1, which is what is available online and was circulated to the board at least 8 days in advance of tonight's meeting. So the changes that we put into that version apply the moratorium only to commercial scale battery energy storage systems. So it included a more detailed definition and outlined which of those systems was being affected by the moratorium, which are types 3 and 4. So I just wanted to explain that that is what we are considering adopting tonight. So with that, I will open the public hearing on local law E of 2026, a local law to impose a temporary moratorium on battery energy storage system facilities. Is there anyone present who would like to speak on this local law? Okay. Do we have anyone who has joined us on Zoom that would like to speak on local law E of 2026? So for the board, if you, our options are to hold the public hearing open or to close the public hearing. If we hold the public hearing open, then we won't be voting on the local law tonight. If we choose to close the public hearing, then if the board so chooses, we can adopt the local law tonight.
Might move to close public hearing. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion carries. Okay, so moving on. we may have already, I think we did this, but I just wanted to make sure that we did the seeker determination of, local law E. So, basically, we can do this by resolution, but this is considered a type 2 action, which means no further review is necessary. So I'll make a motion that the Town of Rochester Town Board declares local law E of 2026 type 2 under seeker, and therefore no further action is required.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstain, motion carries. Oh, oh,
Usually see.
oh, yeah, sorry.
Okay.
So we had a motion and a second. I'm sorry, we're supposed to do a roll call, so roll call.
Councilman Alba.
Aye.
Councilman Coleman.
Aye.
Councilman Speaketh is absent. Councilman Nguyen.
Aye.
Supervisor Noah.
Okay, so our next item is I wanted to I did submit to the town board and the town clerk the annual financial report for 2025. So that's been submitted to the state comptroller. This is basically the reporting of all of our finances for the fiscal year that is reviewed by a certified CPA reviewer upon submission, and they sign off on everything. So it's a audited report. Basically, the broad strokes are that we did spend less in 2025 than we had planned. We also had more revenue than we had planned. So we closed out the year, we had about $1.5 million of fund balance starting the year, and we closed out the year with 1.37 million. We have budgeted to use $300,000 of fund balance this year. So effectively, we should consider that we have about $1,071,000 in fund balance right now. So it's a little bit more. When we were discussing our fund balance in budget season in 2025, I had projected that we would be utilizing the full budgeted amount. So we do have a little bit more than what we had discussed. We have appropriated and spent all of our ARPA funding. So that is a liability that is no longer part of the budget. And just trend wise, our expenditures are trending. The basically human resources expenditures are trending upwards, and you can really see that in looking at there's 3 years of reports included in the annual financial report. So it's really easy to see those patterns. In highway fund, we did grow fund balance. We doubled it, which is great. Now it went from 94,000 to 196,000. So it's not what's considered a healthy fund balance, but it's nice that we have that little bit of cushion. And, while we don't ever want to plan to grow fund balance, it's inevitable that you never budget perfectly. So it's always better to have slightly over budgeted, which $100,000 is a slight over budgeting. So it's always better to do that than to budget less, especially when our reserves in highway are as low as they are. The activity in the other funds is very straightforward. So that would be capital fund, which is where we did the bathroom project. So you would see those expenditures. There is an interfund loan that we did in capital. So it looks a little bit like we spent more than we took in, but that is remedied this year when the grant funds were reimbursed to that fund. We also had a big shift in the way our assets are reported. So as I had prepped the board previously, it does look like our total asset value went down, and that is due to the reporting methodology, not to any loss or major loss of assets. So that, I guess, is about it. I'm happy to answer any questions about the financial report, or, anything like that that the board has. But this is a public document. It's been circulated to the board. And then also the link on the top of the agenda, that has the materials goes to a public Google folder. And the annual financial report is included in the May 14th, 2026 business meeting documents. For the April financial report,
I would say, I know this is a huge amount of work and I appreciate all the time that you put in this. And it's also a huge amount of work to manage a budget of this size and make sure that we're sticking to it. So to end the year ahead is great. So thank you for that.
In your role as budget management officer.
well, the financial report is the chief fiscal officer's duty, but I thank you, Mr. Coleman.
Thank you for both.
With any other questions from the board? Sorry,
Ditto, Michael's comment.
thank you. The monthly reporting, so the monthly financial report. So, what I've started doing is submitting to the board our budget versus actual for the year. So that'll show you the overall snapshot of the year. And I'm doing a monthly profit and loss statement, so you see exactly what is coming in and being spent for the year. So that's not going to compare it to, that won't give you a comparison of the budget. So that's why I'm including both of those documents. So for general fund, the April financial report, we took in $80,717.34 of revenue. And we expended a lot more than that. We expended $259,254.61. And for highway fund, we took in $2,004.92 and expended $146,819.12. So this is the time of year where the highway expenditures are going to go up because it's paving season. So we'll start to see that in the expenditures. The financial reports are also available to the public in that the folder that I was referencing that's at the top of the agenda. So for the supervisor's report, I did not formally write a report, but I do like to review correspondence with you. So I did get copied on the correspondence from Camp Ravtov, which lets us know every year when the camp is opening. So that's going to be at the end of the month. And they copy me on the correspondences they send to the bus service companies, alerting them to the laws about parking and standing vehicles on Upper Cherrytown Road. We did receive I think we should actually add this to the donations. We did receive a generous donation from Wayward Ranch in Kerhonkson of 650 feet of chain link fencing for the for the purpose of improving the yard area at the dog kennel. So I think we should accept that. But also just wanted to alert the board. I'll be working with Jill on that, the fence outline, and make sure that it doesn't, impede anything, but there's a lot of room in that area that I think could be fenced in. We just need to make sure like a mower can get in there.
So we're expanding like dog run.
Yeah. And then in the correspondence folder for the board, I put in correspondences by the month, so, oh, glitch. Sorry, I'm gonna open that up. So we received our, so we receive two times a year, the distribution of mortgage tax receipts from the county. So that will be $150,387.63 coming. The legislature this is on their agenda for May 19th. So after they adopt that, then they cut the checks for that. So that period is October 1st, 2025 through March 31st, 2026. And it's in line with what we budgeted so far. This has passed now, but I did notify the board via email and including correspondence that the IDA held a public hearing on May 12th regarding some proposed changes to the way they have criteria for housing and renewable energy projects. I did not follow that. I don't know if anyone followed that at all. Okay, I haven't looked at it, but I'll look into that. And then we received as a agency, the the Town of Rochester Planning Board's correspondence regarding the conditional negative declaration for the Verizon Wireless project that's before the planning board. So that is included with the board. That is about all the important correspondence that I received. And then I have some department updates, but I'll turn it over to Kate for the town clerk tax collector report.
For tax collection, final unpaid notices went out May 1st. And we collected office until June 1st. To date, $8,504,271 have been collected, with the remaining balance of $1.4 million to be collected. For town clerk in the month of April, $65,013.60 was collected. I received resignations from Justin Junta for the transfer station attendant and laborer, and Mark Rosso for the Board of Assessment Review. Our office has had a significant increase in the last 6 weeks in FOILs. I've received 119 FOIL requests since the end of March. So that has been quite time consuming. Another thing I would just like to recognize two gentlemen in our community that I tend to walk past the Whitfield Cemetery on a daily basis. And there's two teenagers, Brody and Ashton Winecoop, that dedicate their time to clean that and use their gas to take care of the Whitfield Cemetery. And I think that's pretty honorable. And I just want to recognize that. And I'm sure there's many other that volunteer, and I'd love to recognize them as well. But I think it's pretty amazing to see an 18 and 19-year-old boy doing that. So thank you, Ashton and Brody Winecoop, on that. And I have nothing else to report.
Okay. So on the highway report, I did not receive a highway report. We are adopting the 284 agreement tonight, so That's the main thing, and I know that they returned the sweeper on May 6th, so that's why the roads got clean in April, so very thankful to our highway department for the work they're doing in the spring, cleaning up after that long winter, and we are entering paving season, so stay tuned to the highway Facebook page, which tells you about road closures. So there'll be several road closures. They're usually only a couple days long when they're doing the road paving. Just some quick department reports. For the assessor's office has been very busy, booked up with appointments. We are now, the tentative roll was filed on May 1st. And so now we are in more of the formal period that we've been talking about with the assessment role. So anyone that wishes to contest their assessment now must go through a formal process, which includes filling out the RP 524 form and either being seen before the Board of Assessment Review for grievance day, or entering into a stipulation agreement with the assessor that then has to get reviewed and approved by the Board of Assessment Review. So any changes to the role from this point on have to go through the Board of Assessment Review, even if it's a stipulation. We did create a page on the town website that is specific to the reval. Do you want to bring that up so we can show people? Do like a screen share? On the department page for the assessor. So if you go to that, and then do you want to do a screen share? Well, you can navigate to it from there, but that's, you should start there. Thank you, Michael. Okay, so Michael just navigated to the town website. Under departments, he went to assessor's office. At the top of this page, it says the tentative roll is now filed, and then view the 2026 reassessment roadmap. So you can click on the blue hyperlink, and this page goes through the key dates and information from now until going all the way through doing a small claims assessment review petition. So it is May 14th, so we are in the middle of grievance filing, the grievance filing period. If you scroll down, there's here's how you can view your assessment, the tentative roll link with Ulster County. There is an in-person copy available to inspect at the assessor's office. And everyone received their letters. Everyone that had an informal review should have received their letters from Gar Associates the first week of May. Then we have a section on how to contest your assessment that brings you through the legal process. And we are using New York State guidance materials that are linked on this page. So there is a guide that the state puts out, plus we have the forms and instructions. And then the key dates for grievance day, location, and then what to do after grievance day. So after grievance day, the Board of Assessment Review makes their final determinations. That's what turns into the final roll. The final roll is the final policy decision of the assessment roll. And after that, if a person is not happy with the Board of Assessment Review decision, that's when you have until July 31st to file your small claims assessment review petition. Then at the bottom of the page, we have additional quick links and resources, and of course, the contact information for the assessor's office. So this page is specific to this year's reval process. So I just wanted to share that with the public. And the assessor's office is very busy with that process. Similarly, we have a few agenda items relating to the code enforcement office.
Can I stop this one?
Yes, you can. I'm sorry. Thank you. The annual training occurred between our last meeting and now, so our code enforcement officer attended that. And they've been quite busy, definitely utilizing, my clerk has been assisting in that office, and I know they've definitely been utilizing her for that. And we're now getting into the summer season, so they're working to do proactive communications with our businesses that have site plan reviews, that generate noise, that have stipulations in their approvals about time and sound, so that they want to be on top of that this year. And then I have the Recreation Department report, which I will read to you. This comes from our Recreation Director, Ashley Sweeney. The Town of Rochester Recreation Department will be having their annual Spring Fling Luncheon tomorrow at the Community Center from 11 to 1. We are no longer taking signups for the event. And anyone that is signed up, we do ask that if this parking lot is full when you get here, if you please park in the municipal lot, so that we're not parking on our neighbors' yards. On Saturday, May 16th, the Recreation Department is collaborating with the Town of Rochester Environmental Conservation Commission to put on an Earth Day in May event at the Community Center. Learn how estuaries support healthy waterways and what restoration looks like in our region. Discover how community members can help protect these vital ecosystems. The event begins at 10 a.m. and has several educational presenters lined up. Come on down and bring the whole family. Pizza will be served for lunch. Walk for Wellness is back and will be kicking off Monday, May 18th. The flyer for this event can be found on the rec page of the town's website. Join us and keep your heart healthy. The Town of Rochester Memorial Day Parade will be held on Monday, May 25th. Step off will be from the Town of Rochester Town Hall at 1 p.m. and follow the same route as previous years. After the parade, there will be a remembrance ceremony at the Accord Firehouse. So we are doing one event together with the fire district this year. We will have one ceremony at the firehouse. The last day of the Town of Rochester after school program for the school year will be Friday, June 12th. The department will host a party for participants to celebrate another successful year of the program. Summer program is approaching quickly. The rec department is busy organizing and planning the exciting schedule. It will begin Monday, July 6th and run for 6 weeks. Thank you to the highway department for their help picking up garbage bags for Earth Day this year. 78 bags were collected, 37 tires, and 1 couch. We appreciate all they do to help facilitate this event year after year. Also, thank you to the volunteers who cleaned up the individual roads. Keeping this town clean is so important. It only takes a little effort to make a big difference. We appreciate your support. And another thank you to Deborah Martin and all who helped put on this year's Town of Rochester Spring Garden Tour. It was a wonderful event. Even though the weather was a little bit rainy, it was still a great success and the gardens were absolutely beautiful. And that's all I have. Solly, do you have a court report?
Still making improvements, ordered some more furnishings using the JCAP grant. Making progress.
Yes. Thank you for advising Stacy. We're at the final stretch
Yay.
of that. Okay. And then moving on to board and committee reports. Kate, Historic Preservation Commission.
Okay, June 13th is the Farm Inventory Database Day. That will be held here at 10 to 12. And at that point, that is when the committee is going to put the results of the dairy and chicken farms in our area on the board, on the map. Their Hamlet Talk series for the year will focus on Whitfield. They are working on prioritizing the sign replacements for Hamlet signs. They believe Whitfield is in the roughest shape and needs to be replaced, and Medica Honks also needs some work done to it. The Memorial Day weekend of Memorial Day weekend, the 2025 Heritage Day Preservation Award will be issued to Los Bombaros. They were unable to attend Heritage Day last year to receive their reward, so they'll be receiving it this end of this month. And they are working on the logistics for scheduling a Revolutionary Era house bus tour for July. And that is all I have.
Charlotte is absent, so Alexis.
For ECC, already covered the May Day celebration, the community center, 10 a.m. There will be, I think, live birds of prey, which should be pretty cool. There were some questions about how the town board was doing in terms of convening a community preservation committee. The county is asking for a representative if we do form a committee. Committees considering sites for additional pollinator gardens and upkeep for existing sites. And also, let's see, Climate Smart is awaiting review of bronze status and drafted a resolution for merging with ECC. I discussed moving towards different meeting schedule, expanding recruitment efforts. If anybody here is interested in the agricultural committee, please send a letter to supervisor in Alan's office. Brainstorming contact stakeholders such as Hudson Valley Farm Hub for more public engagement and education opportunities. And that's all that.
Okay, planning board, so the April 27th meeting, they approved a process for pre-application consultations. That includes a way for applicants to cover costs associated with those meetings, so I think that's a good step for them to make sure that if the town is incurring any kind of cost, or the applicants are incurring cost, there's a mechanism for them to have that arranged up front. The chair is going to provide summaries of those meetings to the whole board to make sure that everybody's on the same page with that. They had a lot line improvement that they improved with conditions. They scheduled their public hearing for Dunn Farms subdivision, which happened on May 5th. They approved another major subdivision with conditions. They had some discussion about a sound study related to a project that could potentially impact the neighboring properties with sound. And there was a positive declaration declared for another application under seeker. May 5th meeting, there was a public hearing on a proposed subdivision on Dunn Farm Road. There's a lot of discussion. A lot of people came out and had things that they wanted to bring to the board's attention. I encourage members of this board to watch that because I think a lot of the issues that are raised are issues that we hear a lot related to zoning, housing pressure, pressure on water and septic and other things like that. So worth listening to that to hear people's perspective. There was also a lot of discussion around that project and some additional information that the board's requesting towards that application. And then the second major project, which has been topic of discussion related to a proposal for electric bus charging stations in town. And so a lot of work being done to ensure that that is done safely and that they have a good plan of approach to that. So I think another good topic to take a look at. They were relatively short meetings. They were only 3 hours long. So, you know, just watch those when you have time. I've been meeting with the planning board. Actually, we're scheduled to meet tomorrow as well. Sorry, not the planning board, but the chair and vice chair. So they are requesting guidance from us in terms of potentially prioritizing our town planner to make some recommendations for updating code. So their kind of order in which they're thinking of looking at things is first the conservation subdivision code, which I think is important. There's a lot of areas where I think it's they're looking for additional clarity, so they'd like Dave to look at that first to kind of provide them some guidance and provide us some guidance on where we could improve that. They also wanted to look at potentially having maximum building sizes for certain residential areas, because we do have restrictions on building sizes in some cases for some types of structures, but it's not universal and it's not specific to particular zones in town. So I think that's also worth looking at. But they'd like to explore recommendations for dealing with water issues and concerns in areas that may have low well yield, which is something that's come up in a number of applications recently before the planning board. And then also in section 123.12, parts A, B, and C, they're looking at clarifying language around prime soils, prime farmland of significant importance, because I think there are different terms used in different points in the code that would be helpful for the board to have clarified. So I don't know if there's a formal way this board wants to talk about doing that, but I think it would be easy enough to just kind of say, yeah, that sounds like a good list to start with. So I don't know if we should do a resolution about that, or Aaron, if you just want to say they can have Dave start working on those things.
Can we put it on the workshop, Jen?
Sure. Zoning Board of Appeals, so new member Josh Royko attended the first meeting. Yay, we still need an alternate, filled the alternate position there. There was a public hearing for the cell tower project that had to be didn't have to be what was tabled at the request of the applicant while they worked through some other topics with the planning board. They granted an area variance for one application. The ambulance improvement district, I'm still trying to coordinate time to schedule everyone, both the committee and the new leadership at KFAS, to sit down and do some introductions and have a conversation about that. So just trying to get everyone's schedules together. In terms of the free exchange, so we have the MOU. I put together a draft of the MOU for the clothing exchange building that's being proposed in the back of the community center here to take the place of the pod that we currently have there. Aaron, I did talk to Tina, and she was just, I guess the company that's providing the shed was just curious if we have a date when we're going to be able to take delivery of that. So I don't know if we've gotten that far, but we can talk about it separately.
Do they need a permit?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna get the permit though, I think, right?
Mhm.
Our MOU says we're gonna get the permit.
Yeah.
But we can change it. And one thing that just came up in talking to people at the free exchange, there's a question about some of the clothing drops that we have at the transfer station. So right now we have Goodwill boxes and we have,
Salvation.
no, do we have Salvation Army? I know there's a firefighter. Is there also a Salvation Army? Anyway, the question was, I know some of the companies, organizations that we donate to, they're either charitable organizations or they're providing the town some kind of donation for those clothes.
Mhm.
So the question came up, should we look at those and what boxes we have there? Is there something that we should be getting compensation, or should we vet the organizations to ensure that they're not profiting off of those donations if there's a better organization or a different organization that we want to have there. So I don't know what kind of agreements we have with them to have those containers on our property, but they were asking me the question, so I said I would ask you.
Do you want me to answer? Wait,
You can answer or wait.
I had this conversation with staff today and they had requested that I reach out to St. Paul's Textile and see if we can get a second St. Paul's Textile shed that could go at the transfer station.
Yeah.
And then keep all the others, but then there's all those options.
Okay.
All right. So,
That was it.
okay,
Thanks.
that's it.
That's
Okay.
Here it is.
All right, so thank you. Thanks everyone for all your work with your liaison ships. It is now the public comment portion of our meeting. So this is the time of the meeting that we allow for the public to address the board directly. We do ask that you address your remarks to the board and not to each other in the form of a debate. We won't respond to questions as a back and forth during this period. You may ask questions, but you won't get an answer immediately. You can stick around for town board member time, which is the next agenda item. And if a board member so chooses, they may address concerns or questions at that time. We also, the participation via Zoom for this portion of the meeting is paused, so we are only taking Zoom participation for public hearings at this time. And we do ask that you state your name, if you'd like your name on the record, and if you have prepared written comments that you are reading from. We also ask that you follow up and submit those to the town clerk so she doesn't have to type everything. So with that, is there anyone here who would like to address the board? Yes.
Hi, my name is Julia Walsh. I want to take a minute to introduce myself to the board as a landowner in the town of Rochester for over 20 years and a resident homeowner for the past 7. I served as a local elected official in the town, the village of New Paltz for 4 years, also including as a liaison to the planning board and zoning boards. I'm also the founder and executive director of a statewide environmental organization called Frag Action, which was one of the really famous fracking here in New York. I'm here today to talk about the proposed Verizon cell tower on Granite Road with a group of neighbors who have been working to stop the project for the past year. A few people will be speaking tonight and others who are here to support. If you want to raise your hand just so people can see who's here on the planning board on this issue. So we're here tonight because we've really lost confidence in the planning board, and we want to share with the town board our concerns that currently this project is moving forward without an environmental impact statement as part of the secret process. While we know the town board does not have authority over the planning board, we feel it is important that you know our concerns and that we are asking you to weigh in as a governmental body and as individual electeds to the planning board requesting a positive declaration under SECRA for a full environmental impact statement. While there are many reasons that the planning board as lead agency can determine this project needs a positive declaration, I want to speak to the one that the town board should be very concerned with, and that is to our view shed that powers both our local economy and the community character that many of us live here to enjoy. I think we can all agree that we have a world-class view shed. It is one of the most valuable resources and defines our community and should be protected above all else. Over 500,000 tourists visit Minnewaska a year, not just in Minnewaska. And to be honest, when I heard about the cell tower last spring, I thought that this would be rejected on the grounds of the view shed alone. I was surprised when it appeared to be moving forward and, proposing to build a massive 14-story cell tower that's visible from the Shawangunk Mount Scenic Byway, from Route 209 and scenic overlooks 4455, and from the Minnewaska State Park Visitor Center seems pretty outrageous. I've retained one of the leading SECRA lawyers in the state, John Brown, and have been advised that under SECRA, the aesthetic impacts alone to our view shed can warrant a positive declaration. Yet instead of a positive declaration, the board seems to believe that by declaring a conditional negative declaration and lowering the height of the tower from 145 to 125, they have made a compromise that will lessen the damage to the view shed. And this is simply not the case. First off, lowering the tower 20 feet will not significantly lessen the impacts to our view shed, nor will it stop the tower from being raised another 20 feet at a future date. Under the federal law called the Spectrum Act, Section 6409, state and local governments are forbidden to deny requests from cell phone companies and cell phone tower corporations to modify wireless equipment, including the raising of the height of an existing cell tower to up to 20 feet once it's built. If the cell tower is built on Granite Road, there is nothing that will stop it from being raised 20 feet in the future. I raised this point at the last planning board meeting, and one of the planning board members, after public comment, asked the public, the planning board lawyer if this was the case. Not only did the planning board lawyer agree, but the Verizon said that the town will have no ability to deny raising it 20 feet. So the lowering the cell tower is a red herring and seems to be one of the grounds in which the conditional negative declaration is very much based on. The view shed is one of the many issues, and we'll be sending the planning board our comments, the town board, our comments along with the planning board for more detailed information as to the issues with the different parts of the recent application. But we also have had over 250 people who have signed a petition requesting a positive declaration, environmental impact statement, most of them from the town of Rochester. And again, we've come tonight to ask the town board to request a positive declaration both publicly and with their own capacity as members of this elected body. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to address the board?
Hello, good evening. I'm not a public speaker. I have great difficulties talking in front of people right now. I'm starting to sweat to get to the first sentence, so bear with me. I felt that I needed to come speak to you tonight because I didn't feel heard by the planning board. I keep getting you guys and the planning board mixed up, so if my wordage is wrong, please, again, bear with me. I know you are not all, I know you all are not the decision makers, but you need to hear it all again. Again, my name is James and I live in an apartment building right next to the meadow where the proposed cell tower is planned for construction. I worked in the telecommunication industry as a lineman for a decade. I want to speak tonight as someone who will be directly affected, not in theory, but in daily life. I myself am disabled. I was in a motorcycle accident and now have a paralyzed left arm. This accident happened 6 months after my 11-year-old son and only child, Benjamin, passed away from a seizure disorder in February 2024. I was bedridden for close to a year and have been working on regaining a full, functioning, and fulfilling life. The area that I live, specifically my apartment, has been a cornerstone foundation block to my mental health and physical health recovery. The location being considered for this tower is right beside our home, about 130 feet from my living room and bedroom wall, where my recovery takes place. That's a shorter distance than the tower height. If anything were to go wrong, a structural failure from a high windstorm, which we know that we have a constant high winds through here, or any kind of collapse, that tower could fall directly into our homes. That is a real physical safety risk to the residents here, not an abstract one. Beyond that, this field is not just empty land. It's part of our living environment. It's where dozens of children from our complex, 2 of which are here today, play every single day. They ride their bikes on the dirt road back there, chase fireflies in the grass, climb trees, and spend time outside where it's still safe to be near nature. That space is one of the few free open areas left for them and for all of us to enjoy. The report stating that there will be no pollutions is simply false. Think about all the construction that will be needed to erect this. It's not just they come and they pop a tower in the middle of grass and that's it. The ground will be reformed for easy access for the absurd amount of construction and utility trucks that will be a constant presence during and after construction for the new fiber optic installations and constant maintenance. Surrounding trees that have been there for decades that make up a part of the view shed will need to be removed to make way for the trucks hauling concrete, imported stone, cranes to lift the sections of tower, utility trucks and crews to dig out the underground pipes that bring the power and endless service providers fiber optic wires to the inside of the tower. Line crews will be disrupting traffic and all neighboring properties for years after just to install new fiber optic backbone that is not needed at all in this area. We have signal everywhere. Then there's the maintenance that will need to be kept up with regularly. Again, line crews will be all over our quiet roads unnecessarily. These line crews are made up of multiple diesel trucks that stay running, sitting in place, or slowly moving up the road outside people's homes. All of this will be put a lot of abuse on our already crumbling roads. We already have a deficit in our road money. I've worked on hundreds of cell towers all over this state, and every single one has warning signs. Danger, radio frequency, radiation hazard. This sign warns of health hazards associated with exposure to radio frequency radiation, which can cause severe burns from close to prolonged exposure. Why would any company put this sign up on their cell tower if there is no definitive evidence of harm from radio waves, which is one of the reasons why they don't allow us to bring up the radio waves during their court cases and stuff. The board must consider those effects. It seems wrong that the absence of absolute proof is being used as permission to ignore possible risks, especially when those risks involve our health, our kids, and the land we live on. Other signs include danger, high voltage sign, which is just another danger to the children. No trespassing signs, alerts individuals that the area is private property and unauthorized access is prohibited after accompanied by penalties of violation. What was once a spot for the kids to play safely and develop their imagination in the woody grassy area is now up for discussion of becoming a concrete pad that can potentially make you sick, completed with a metal fence and wire that can cut you to protect corporate equity. On top of the concern of safety hazards, now playing too close to the structure might get you in trouble with the law. God forbid a ball goes over a fence. Video surveillance signs. Now we will be on video surveillance. My bathroom windows face right there. Again, 130 feet from this cell tower. That's not acceptable. I feel not all avenues and possibilities have been looked at either. For instance, Verizon could put the panels of this tower on the Granite Hotel stairway rooftop access towers. Just like at SUNY New Paltz JFT faculty tower, it's already an eyesore. It's already constructed. It's in the correct location. It's taller than the trees. It would be safe from vandalism and interaction with wildlife, with access controlled by the 24/7 staff. And it disrupts 0 families with 0 impact to our beloved valley wildlife and its viewshed. Please don't let the corporate convenience outweigh our community's safety and peace of mind. The place we call home deserves careful consideration and respect. Thank you. I'm gonna excuse myself.
Okay. Is there anyone else here who'd like to address the board?
I'm not gonna read the seat catalog. So, my name is Philip Rhodes. I live on Stony Hill Road. It's either looking at the board or being able to see this. This will be brief, I think, that Julia covered a bit of this. My focus was on the tower height. And hopefully I've got all these facts correct. I'm pretty sure they are. But starting out, it's important to note that the zoning ordinance limits cell towers to 50 feet above the nearest tree line. So that is a factor to keep in mind. Initially, Verizon asked to build a tower that was 145 feet tall. Julia mentioned the Spectrum Act that was passed in 2012. And the FCC implementation for that act allows up to an additional 20 feet. And precludes any local government from being able to block that increase, so it's pretty much a given if Verizon were to build that tower, that they would actually have the ability to extend it by 20 feet. The wording in the FCC implementation was the mounting of the proposed antenna on the tower would increase the existing height of the tower by more than 10% or by the height of one additional antenna array, with separation from the nearest existing antenna not to exceed 20 feet, whichever is greater. So basically, the tower could be, the height could be extended 20 feet. There's an exception that the mounting of the proposed antenna may exceed the size limits set forth in this paragraph if necessary to avoid interference with existing antennas. So it's a bit open-ended as far as what, you know, the extent of a tower can be. So we're potentially, we were talking about a tower potentially 165 feet tall, which would be, you know, I think in terms of a 16 or 17 story building, that's quite large for this area. Verizon was looking for a variance, and so they started an application at the Zoning Board of Appeals. By their first estimate, the nearest tree line, they said, was 40 feet tall. And if they built a 145-foot cell tower, 145-foot cell tower, that would be more than double the height allowed by our zoning. So in other words, if the tree line were 40 feet tall, and they built a 145-foot tower, that's 105 feet above the tree line, and the allowance in the zoning regulations is 50 feet. So that's how I'm calculating that. They agreed to lower the tower limit to 125 feet. My opinion only, but I think that was something they agreed to do for the planning board. Because basically they knew they could still have that 145 feet when you added the 20-foot. So in the most recent, I believe it was the last planning board hearing, Verizon said that their lawyer said that the nearest tree line is actually 100 feet tall. So the tower would only be then 25 feet above the tree line and in compliance. So they withdrew their application from the zoning board and went back to the planning board. My questions about this are, who determines the height of the nearest tree line? So far, that information seems to be coming from Verizon to the planning board. And my feeling, and those of us who have been objecting to the siting of the cell tower, is that the town should have an independent consultant determine the height of the tree line and not just go by what Verizon says. We feel that process should be transparent. I'm asking the town to ensure that the planning board, to the extent that you can influence them, use independent consultants with no ties to Verizon or its partner businesses, or with no appearance of such conflicts of interest. We've seen such conflicts in the hiring of a viewshed analyst who consulted. That person did not appear to be independent. They seem to have done a lot of work for Verizon in the past and for companies that were partners with Verizon. Likewise, there was an analysis provided by a Verizon consultant on the impact of the tower on animals and vegetation within the area impacted by the cell tower if it were sited there. We'd like to see a positive response, as Julie was saying, to the secret, rather than the negative one that they seem about to issue. And we would then have a full environmental impact statement, and we feel that's necessary for many reasons, which have been presented to the planning board. And the planning board does not seem interested in what the community is presenting, and they don't seem to particularly care what the community response to the siting of the cell tower on Granite Road is, which is, from what I've seen at a number of hearings, pretty universally opposed. Thank you.
I do.
Oh,
wanna
hold on. So we let everybody speak first, and then if you want to speak a second time, we'll come back around, okay? So was there anyone else here who would like to address the board tonight? Yes, Barbara.
I'm gonna let him go first, because it's still on the topic. Because I'm going to speak at a different time.
Okay, well, you also had your hand up, okay.
Hello, my name is Jeremy, and I would also like to voice my opposition to the Verizon monolith that's being proposed in our neighborhood, and just ask for a positive declaration. So at the very least, we could get a proper environmental impact study. Doesn't seem like you can be too careful about these things. And just in general, I'm just asking for the board's guidance to please help the planning board on this issue and just kind of weigh in to the degree that you're able, because there seems like there's a bit of a disconnect. There's a lot of folks who have come to a lot of meetings regarding this tower, all in opposition. I haven't really heard anything in support of the tower, except from the person who's paid to support it by Verizon. And also even the person who owns the property, who stands to have a pretty fair financial gain, I think. I don't think I've seen them at any of the meetings, so it's kind of interesting. The planning board does seem to have a very mysterious support of this project. I don't know why. I've asked a couple of times, like the planning board seems to just generally disregard a lot of the opposition, and they seem to be all too happy to kind of poo-poo anyone who might have considerations about some of the obvious things. The view shed, the health impacts, the environmental problems, and just other things. And it seems like those things are almost immediately just kind of disregarded. They seem to have a very buddy kind of a relationship with the attorney, who's basically being paid to, in my opinion, just kind of not give the full story of this. They've been the attorney for Verizon has been asked for call logs, dropped call logs, missed call logs, provided none of it, says he doesn't have to. Same thing with, they were asked to mark out the property so we can see exactly where it's gonna go. That hasn't been done either, but there's still a lot of like camaraderie between the planning board and the attorney for Verizon, which I don't understand personally. It seems like there should be more of an adversarial relationship, and definitely like an arm's length business relationship. Like, one person is here getting paid quite a lot of money, and it's obvious when they park their Porsche out there to say whatever is necessary, as attorneys are prone to do, say whatever is necessary to get the project greenlit. And it just seems like there's a lot of I don't know if it's deer in the headlights or people are just genuinely happy about it. Maybe there's information, and I've asked a few times, maybe there's information that we're just not privy to on why this is such a good idea. And why the planning board is so excited about this and why they go out of their way to dismiss claims by taxpayers who don't want this to happen. I don't know, maybe the board knows if there's a reason, maybe we would like to know too, but I would say that in short, there's been a lot of commotion about tax rates and people's assessments and things like that and property values. It seems like a funny thing that all of a sudden, if our properties are worth so much and if they're rising because this is such a wonderful place for people to move to from Jersey, Long Island, and Manhattan, and they can't wait to come up here. It seems silly to stick a big cell tower right in their view shed. Those two things seem a little silly to me, but I also may not be in possession of all the facts. So I don't know, maybe people who want to buy $1 million houses in Hudson Woods, maybe they would love cell towers. I would not know. But the point is that those two things seem a little bit diametrically opposed and seem a little bit interesting. Another point that I'd like to make is there's also a lot of headlines right now about big data centers. There's obviously the one in Utah, and there's another in Missouri, and there's another in New York. There's a lot about data centers. And there's a lot of situations where there's rooms like this filled with 100 people or more who are all opposed to these big data centers, sucking up lots of water, using lots of gigawatts. And a town board, planning board, or whatever, they just unanimously approve these things. And there's a lot of people who get upset, and the boards get voted out the next term or whatever happened. But it's really interesting to see this in a small town scale where the will of the people is just kind of disregarded in the interest of big business. I think that there's a part of that here that's also at play, because one of the things, as I'm sure you're well aware, I know the planning board is well aware, that in the Telecommunications Act of 1996, there's a stipulation in there which says no environmental health concerns can be taken into consideration when looking at the, whether or not to yay or nay this kind of tower, right? 1996, that was put into federal legislation that you could not deny a permit on the grounds of the health effects. This is likely before many health effects had been publicly, let's just say, admitted to or so forth. Now we're 30 years later, and it's clear that these industries are 30 years ahead of what the civilians are allowed to know about, vote on, and weigh in on at any particular time. 30 years ahead. So I would just like to point out that I'm quite sure that this cell tower that's the third or fourth cell tower in this area that's being proposed, it's not being put there so that we can scroll faster, so that they can host, we can see like grandma's pictures on our stuff. It's being put there for the Internet of Things, clearly. That's why there's shorter bandwidths and shorter wavelengths. It's so that in 30 years from now, when there's flock cameras everywhere and we're in a police state, and if you make a Facebook post about the president, you can't open your refrigerator. That's what this is for. They are 30, if not 50 years ahead of the silly stuff that we have on our phones and on our laptops and stuff like that. So I personally don't have a whole lot of faith in federal government, and I don't necessarily want them any closer in my backyard than they need to be. So for me, that's just one more good reason to keep this kind of technology. They can have it in Brooklyn. They love it down there. Let them have it in Brooklyn and in Manhattan. And I think it's wonderful. It should stay down there. But people who live in this area, I think they appreciate small town politics. They appreciate rural landscapes, and they appreciate fresh air and not being radiated and polluted when you're trying to, drive past the place or you're just. I think I've made the points that I wanted to make, but please help the planning board, and again. If there are issues about this that we're just in the dark about because we don't understand all the ins and outs and so forth, then please tell us. Because otherwise, it seems like a black and white, very simple issue, and it's absolutely mind numbing to understand why things are happening the way they are and why 2 + 2 = like 7 1/3. It doesn't make any sense, but that's what happens at planning board meetings. Thank you.
So you're gonna go and then Barbara. Okay.
So just a little spin off of what he just said, something I forgot to put into my script. During the balloon test that they had, that was the time of my healing process. I was just able to like traverse outside for more than 15 minutes, and then I'd have to go back in and heal. But I saw them out there with the lift, and they had the giant balloon attached to it up in the air. So I wandered up there and I was like, hey, what's going on? And one of the ladies on the planning board was there with 2 gentlemen. And she said, you know, she was kind of dismissive. She didn't want to tell me what they were doing at first. And then I said, well, I live right there. Can you just tell me what you guys are doing over here? She's like, oh, you live right there? I was like, yeah, that's my apartment, that wall right there. And she said, oh, that sucks. I said, why? She said, well, they're planning on putting a cell tower here. I was like, oh, great. So all the construction. She goes, yeah, it's going to be loud for a while, probably. And so I just assumed that it was already a done deal. Like, town had already agreed on it. It was about to be built. Then I found out through the community that we were banding together to try and talk about it at the meeting in the like here right now. And I was like, it kind of confused me, but I was gonna come and I was gonna speak. I had nothing written at the time. I was off the cuff, even worse than today was. In between the time of me finding out there was gonna be a meeting and the meeting, the head of the planning board, I don't know his name. One day I'm pulling out of my driveway and he had pulled into the entrance, parked on the side of the parking lot, got out of his car and was taking pictures of up the side of my house. And I just was like, hey, can I help you? And he goes, nope. And he just got in his car and left. And I just, after seeing who they were, I was kind of upset that people that are supposed to be representing us and backing us are so dismissive to the people that live right there. It was hurtful, disrespectful, and like he said, I hope that you guys can weigh in or just kind of make sure that decorum is followed. There's a way to do things properly, nicely. And there's a way to do things disrespectfully, and I feel that we have been nothing but disrespected from the planning board on multiple levels. So that's where I thank you guys. I appreciate everything you guys are doing. And hopefully this can be done by 8 o'clock for you guys.
Oh, no.
I know.
Barbara Cornell, I wasn't gonna speak on that issue, I have another issue. But I remember many years ago when that cell tower went up on City Hall Road over top of people's houses. Children were playing. They did an independent study of health and welfare. And they found absolutely no sign of radiation. And there's been nobody up on that road that has ever come down with any cancer or anything in all the years. I also want to say that I do not get cell service on my property. There are people in this town, so it is not 100%. I know there are people who live up on the ridge that do not have cell service, and that has to be for fire and safety reasons. And also the hardest thing for me in all these 30 years I've been involved, to understand that public opinion, every person in town can come out and say we're against it. And when it comes in a court of law, that cannot be used as a decision. The 1996 FCC If this planning board denies it, it will be sued and they will lose. All right, on the other issue. I have to say how disappointed I am that Councilman Smythe has not shown for 2 meetings. I had prepared this to read at the last meeting and she was not there. So I will say it now. I'm also concerned that she has not shown up for 2 meetings. I know planning board and zoning board have attendance issues. If you miss so many meetings, for her to not show up and still take her pay is to me unethical. And I know that she is running for highway superintendent in the fall, and so if she plans on not showing up from now until the fall, that is highly, and accept her pay, that is highly unethical. In the past, we have had a town board member do that, get pissed off and just not show up and receive his pay for the rest of the year. So I'm just saying that I feel this is, I hope she's watching, and this is very unethical for her to not show up. My other issue with that is that it was stated in a paper that she is the only town board member that is born and raised here. And that I want to state that the New York State law governs what a town board has to do, what they are authorized to do, and what their charge is. And it is not to represent one segment of the population. We had a supervisor years ago that literally told me to my face, I only have to represent the people who voted for me. And that was totally unethical. So as far as I'm concerned, by her not showing up and not doing her service for those committees she's on, if she thinks that she's going to go and wait until she's the highway superintendent, that she's just not going to serve out, there has to be some repercussions as loss of pay, or if nothing else, to have the public understand that she is not serving the community according to the town board law. Thank you.
Or anyone else would like to address the board?
Let's make a final comment here, just this issue of the, basically what Verizon needs to prove in court law and otherwise is that there's a gap in coverage or that there's not a different place that they could put this tower. And some of the local area residents there have paid literally probably tens of thousands of dollars to hire some of the best experts on radio frequency technology, which is new to many of us, and I'm sure to the planning board. And there is no gap in coverage from what these maps show, what they file with the FCC. There are different areas in the town where there isn't cell coverage, but in that particular area, there's a full cell coverage, and Verizon puts these maps in under threat of perjury under the law. So it's been, very disconcerting to us. I have felt that the main reason that the planning board wants to approve this is because of a pending lawsuit, and the Verizon representative lawyer has said multiple times in veiled threats or kind of almost direct threats that they will lose in court because of such and such reason. Yet, kind of like to what Jeremy was saying, they refuse to provide some of the key information about calls that are being dropped to show that they actually need this tower in that location. So there are a couple of independent reports that were done, and it's worth looking at that the need is not there at this place. And one of the experts, I'll just read why, because one of the things that the Verizon lawyer has said to the planning board multiple times is that, trust me, they wouldn't be building a $500,000 cell tower if we didn't need the coverage. Well, that's not really accurate. That's not really what accurate information. And so in this expert report that was submitted, this man, Dr. Chamberlain said, why are wireless telecommunication companies spending money on unneeded new infrastructure build out? The answer is increasingly clear that they are doing so to garner a share in the home internet market. by offering a wireless option rather than a wired option like Spectrum that most of us currently use. Customers enroll in their respective carrier's wireless streaming service, and in doing so, they receive a small device that plugs into a standard electrical outlet. The small device provides internet access with home Wi-Fi. Unlike conventional routers that create a fiber optics or cable, these devices connect to the internet through a wireless connection by nearby cell towers. The home internet market is huge, currently exceeding 500 billion and expected to increase over 850 billion in the next few years. This is the only way the wireless industry can overtake wired service providers, is to build out wireless infrastructure beyond what is needed for cell phone use. So, Verizon has their voice link that they've been promoting in the area, which is, that's a wireless, providing system. So, we're just concerned that there really isn't a need. And so this tower is being built in the view shed, harming the view shed. It's going to be visible, from multiple locations, and we're all gonna see it like all the time. And it's damaging to the local businesses in that corridor are closed. So all of this really needs to be consideration. And I too, after, serving on the village board, after I've done work in the state legislature, multiple town councils, like for European Union, I see a lot of different levels of government. I generally feel like, the planning board has set its mind to the fact, and I have been told off the cuff by one of the planning boards that their hands are tied, meaning legally, yet that is not true because, they can indeed, we believe, win in a lawsuit. There have been several towns at Verizon, Palentown recently, Terrytown, and several others where Verizon has been rejected from the cell tower and they have not sued the planning boards. Furthermore, even if the town was sued, they don't inquire any damages to this. There's really no reason that at this point, we shouldn't be at least provided a full environmental impact statement under SECRA to determine both the aesthetic impacts and other pieces of the SECRA process, and then be provided a balancing test, which allows for a socioeconomic community character component, where you can really look at the cost versus the benefit of a cell tower like that. And there have been, at this point, many people have questioned, and very legitimate experts have questioned the grounds on which Verizon is moving forward. So I think that it is worth considering. I know that this is under your specific purview as a decision-making body in this, but again, it's very important that, we feel that you need to understand what's going on, and we really do want you to weigh in on the positive declaration. Thank you.
All right, one more.
All right,
Okay,
Thank you.
okay.
the hardest thing for me to learn was the town board is an independent body. The planning board is an independent body. They have no jurisdiction over what the planning board does. While I appreciate all you are involved, I appreciate your concern. But to ask the town board to do something that they legally cannot do, that's not
Okay. I think we're done with the public comment portion of the meeting. Now it's town board member time, so I'll open it up to the town board.
Without getting into any of the specifics about the cell phone tower, I think it's important that people feel confident in the transparency and functioning of their local government. And just a reminder that I'm pretty sure you can FOIL or request any documents from any of the governing bodies. If you haven't gone that route, I would suggest doing that to feel like you're getting more transparency from the planning board. A lot of it's hosted online. I hope you at least get confidence in the transparency of the process, even if the outcome doesn't end up being what you wanted.
Yeah, I mean, I just
echoing what other people have been saying, you know, the town board doesn't have purview over the decisions of the planning board related to this application, whether we agree or disagree with project or how it's being structured. Where we do have the ability to weigh in is in terms of our zoning code and how we make changes to that. And I think this project absolutely opens up a need to discuss some of those things. Hearing that a tower could be in range of a residential structure, that's something that we could potentially include in the code. We could look at what zones we allow these types of structures to go up in. We could have setbacks if they are in residential areas. But we have to do all of that within the bounds of state law and federal law. And so I think that's, if people have suggestions or recommendations, we can absolutely consider those things. But in terms of a project that's already underway, the responsibility of the planning board is to apply the code as written. The other thing I just want to say, and I think we all occasionally have missteps and say things that are not phrased the best, and so for people that feel that they received comments from members of the planning board that were not respectful, I encourage you to talk to them directly, and maybe you'll be surprised that they actually didn't intend it that way, or maybe they will correct the record there. But I do think it's important. I know all the members of the planning board. We've put them in those roles because of their expertise. And I think any perception that they are somehow biased or being influenced by corporate money or pressure is not something that I've personally experienced. I have not heard of any of them feeling that they were pressured by Verizon. I think they all come to those meetings well prepared with good questions, and they certainly take their time with applications and are making sure that they're doing things as best they can in terms of adhering to the zoning code. So I just want to put that on the record because they all work very hard. They spend a lot of hours both in the meetings and outside doing their homework. So I hope that's clear for anybody who watches the meetings and talks to them, because they are doing a tremendous amount of work and a service to the town. That's all.
Okay, well, I want to say two things. One, I thank the public for coming. We did receive, as I mentioned, the referral letter regarding the conditional negative declaration. The cover letter was a little confusing, but I believe the comment period from involved agencies is through June 8th. So we as a board actually can weigh in. So if you would like, we can discuss this at our workshop meeting, and we can submit comment, just like the planning board can submit comment to us. We are separate. We are not in charge of the planning board. We are independent, which is why I, as an elected official, can say that if the planning board could deny this application based on the proximity to the apartment complex, I would hope that they would do so. Because the fact that it is so close to that apartment complex enrages me. So I just want you to know that to me is, I cannot believe that it could be built so close to an apartment building. You would not see this at Hudson Woods. So I'm going to leave it there. And I think if we do, I think we can issue a comment on that. I would also just like to, I think, I don't want to censor any comments or anything from the public about the board members. I just do want to clarify that town board members are paid a salary. It's not a stipend per meeting attendance. So planning board and zoning board of appeals, statutorily, it's in the law that they can be removed for grounds, and grounds could be meeting attendance. For elected officials, it's very different. And it's not based on meeting attendance, it's based on your elected status. So, you know, every board member misses meetings and has reasons why they might not be here. So I just, you know, I personally always just want to make sure we have a quorum, but, and I, you know, hope that we have good attendance, but things come up for people, and the elected officials are legally due their pay. So there's no function that we as a board or anyone can have over not issuing that pay to them. So it's very, very clear in the law regarding that. So the only ability we have to control pay for elected officials is when we set the budget, when we're setting the salaries. We can't, there's nothing else we can do except saying what the compensation for that office is. So I just wanted to clarify that. There are different rules for the planning board, zoning board of appeals, and a board like ours. Okay, we good to move on? So our first item is the acceptance. So I just concluded town board member time. If you have comments that you want to submit to Kate,
These are just notes, but if you want, I can use them.
yeah, that'd be great.
And if you wanted to throw them away.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
I'm good. Okay.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you. Oh, please, sorry. Very upsetting to me. So first resolution is acceptance of the minutes. I had a couple of edits that I found that I wanted to include, if that's okay. So. This is my problem. I write notes on too many things. There it is. Okay. For the April 9th, 2026 business meeting, the adjournment was 10:54 p.m. And then the April 23rd, 2026 meeting, I only caught it because I was saying it. It says mayor's office, but it should be mayor, our assemblyman.
Gotcha.
And then there was just a typo in one of the resolution titles. It said that, but it said constable.
Gotcha.
And then a really small thing, because it's not a resolution, but there was a listing of what was going to be on the next agenda. And when I looked at it, I was like, huh? So I went back and listened to it. And I think it was just confusing because I was blabbing. So it was the vehicle and traffic law, the moratorium, moving forward on the grant agreement, the MOUs, and potential appointments. And then Mary Lou added moratorium on data centers. Okay. All right. So those were sorry, I didn't look at that until right before the meeting. Usually I send those directly to Kate, but we didn't have a chance to link up on that. So I'll make a motion that the Town of Rochester Town Board accepts the minutes of the April 9th, 2026 business meeting and the April 23rd, 2026 workshop meeting as prepared and presented by the town clerk with the proposed amendments.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstain, motion carries. Acceptance of donations. Do you have the St. Paul's textile number?
95. CMO. Everything else was the same that you had in here.
Okay.
The only other thing is, PAC 16, the, Cub Scouts donated a variety of food and treats and toys to our dog kennel. I don't know what that value is though.
Okay. And then this is. That's, okay. So I'll do it like this. So I'll make a motion that the town of Rochester Town Board accepts the following donations in the following amounts with gratitude. St. Pauli's Textile, $94.95. $1,500 from Aremus Foundation for registration fees for summer camp. $50 from Tim Hurley for St. Patrick's Day luncheon. And the following items, 650 feet of fence from Wayward Ranch for use at the dog kennel. And packs and food and treats donated for use at the dog kennel from Troop Pack 16.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstain, motion carries. Okay, and then I'll make a motion that the town of Rochester Town Board accepts the 5A of 2026 abstract and approves payments in the following amounts. General fund, $53,571.78. Highway fund, $62,468.36. No expenditures in ambulance fund, no expenditures in capital fund. Street lighting, $547.77. Excuse me. And out of escrow, $11,371.16.
Second.
Any discussion? Thanks to our auditors. All right, all in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstain, motion carries. Okay, and then we had some. There were some issues with abstract 3B, not really. So I'll make a motion that the town of Rochester Town Board amends abstract 3B of 2026 and resolution 165 of 2026 by reducing general fund expenditures. And I made a mistake here. So by $385.20 due to a 20-cent overage error with that was not caught in the audit, and the voiding of a voucher in the amount of $385. This amounts to a change from $68,956.77 to $68,571.57 in resolution 165 of 2026. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? The $385 was a registration fee for a conference that didn't end up being attended by the individual, so. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstain, motion carries. All right. So for a bunch of our resolutions, I have attorney comments. So I'm happy to have anyone else make the motions, but I'll be making amendments for several things, so. So for the 284 agreement, I mean, I can just keep going, but anyone is welcome to do the resolution. So pursuant to the provisions of section 284 of the highway law, the town board hereby agrees that monies levied and collected for the repair and improvement of highways and received from the state for the repair and improvement of highways shall be expended in accordance with the 285 agreement as submitted by the highway superintendent for the year 2026 with the following amendment that the language be included that Payment will be paid upon presentation of vouchers for the items in this agreement.
Second. Also need to update the supervisor's name.
Oh, yes, sorry, they did do that. I'm sorry, I think I forgot to post that, but yes, and update the name of this town supervisor.
Second, or. Second as amended.
So, Solly seconded it. Yeah, okay. Any more discussion? Right, all in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstain, motion carries. All right, I have attorney comments on the fireworks contract. Did anyone else have any comments on that?
Is it not the same thing?
It is, but they always send us the version and we always make changes to it. And I didn't have time to do that. Sorry, you guys, I'm always fumbling with my papers. I have a stick. Okay. I'm just finding it. Okay, so for the Santori's contract, in paragraph, the last paragraph, number 5, she wants us to add the language except for the crowd control provided by Santori as per paragraph 4G of this agreement. And then in paragraph 10, change Saratoga County to Ulster County. And then the signature should be from the town supervisor, not the town clerk.
Second.
Well, I'm listing the changes and then I'll make the motion, or you can make the motion.
Are you done listing the changes? I'll make that motion.
No, you have to make the, okay,
You want me to read the whole thing?
make the motion
That's written on there.
as presented. But with the amendments.
I'd like to make a motion, the town board authorizes the town supervisor to execute the contract as presented with Suntory's world famous fireworks for the Heritage Day fireworks display scheduled for October 3rd, 2026, in an amount not to exceed $5,000 with the proposed amendments.
Second, is there a second?
Second.
Any more discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstain, motion carries. I didn't save it to the last minute, Kate. After 3 years, I'll maybe get things right. Okay. Do you feel good about adopting the vehicle and traffic law? Yes,
Yes.
okay. So do we know what number we're at?
I don't want to take a guess.
Okay. So
I want to say this would be 5, but
Is it like a check if you skip forward? It's not a big deal.
they number it.
They will number it there.
anyway.
I'm sorry, I forgot to check. We can say that it's going to be renumbered. What was 4?
Rescinding it?
That was 3.
Maybe this is taxes.
One of the tax ones.
Those were 1 and 2. Wait a minute, has
That is
anything
maybe
else?
4. No, because I think the most recent one is rescinding.
Okay, so I think this would be 4.
4?
Yeah. And then this one would be 5. Sure.
Whereas a public hearing was held regarding local law D 2026 on March 26, 2026, and held open for written comment until April 13th, 2026. Now that don't I rename it down here? when we adopt it.
Sure, yeah.
Now therefore be it resolved, the town board of the town of Rochester hereby adopts. Local law D of 2026 as local law 4 of 2026. Which repeals and replaces chapter 132 vehicles and traffic of the town.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstain, motion carries. I guess, do we have to request that you file it? No, you just file it.
That's already in the local law.
Yeah, okay. Okay, great. Next up.
Make motion.
Sure.
Whereas the town board of the town of Rochester has identified a need to review and update local regulations concerning battery energy storage systems to ensure the safety, health, and welfare of the community. And whereas the town board recognizes the vital importance of BESS in promoting energy diversity and supporting a sustainable energy grid, and is committed to establishing comprehensive regulations that balance these benefits with local land use priorities. And whereas a duly noticed public hearing was opened on March 26, 2026, and continued on April 9th, 2026, and the record was held open for written public comment until April 13, 2026. And whereas the town board has received and carefully considered advisory comments from the town of Rochester Planning Board, the Town Code Enforcement Office, and the Ulster County Planning Board. And whereas the Ulster County Planning Board provided mandatory changes which have been fully incorporated into the updated draft, identified as version 2.1, specifically focusing the scope of the moratorium on Tier 3 and Tier 4 BESS systems. And whereas the town board finds that a temporary moratorium is specifically determined to be necessary to provide adequate time for the board to conduct an appropriate study of commercial and utility scale BESS and enact appropriate legislation for the regulation of these systems. Now therefore be it resolved that the town board of the town of Rochester hereby adopts local law E 2026 version 2.1, designated as local law number 5 of 2026, providing for a moratorium on the processing and approval of Tier 3 and Tier 4 battery energy storage systems. And be it further resolved that the town board requests the town clerk to file said local law with the Secretary of State of New York.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstain, motion carries. Okay, I didn't have time to prepare the budget modification, so just so, I'm having to do a budget modification from fund balance to fund some things that we didn't budget for. But they have to be one-time expenditures, so it can't be to cover, say, the clerk positions that we're talking about. So I just have not had time to finalize that for you guys. And we'll have them, I don't know. Yeah, that one's being tabled. So the next is the revocation of a bond resolution of $80,000. So I'll make a motion. Oh, shoot, I forgot to find the resolution number. Sorry. Please hold. Sorry, you guys. That was February. Yeah.
He's not over.
No, I'm just.
Talking to the reporter.
Oh, I see. Okay. We do not have to do this. So. This got included somehow in what we submitted to them, but we did not do this as a. Anyway, this was a mistake.
Okay.
So, I think we never authorized it via resolution. So I'll just be safe and make a motion that the town board hereby confirms that a bond in the amount of $80,000 was not issued at the February 26th, 2026 meeting. Do you have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. There is so much involved in taking out these bonds. Okay, so metal detector. There should be 3 quotes that were up in the backup for the board. And we basically just need to go with the lowest one. So we received, there is one model of metal detector that the court identified that they would like. It fits in the present location and it's ADA compliant. And it's also like a very, very good metal detector we found. It's very, very highly rated. So we received 3 quotes. And the lowest is from Metal Detector LLC in the amount of $6,600, including shipping. So that is what we should go with.
Okay, may I make a motion to adopt the resolution that says, whereas the town sought 3 competitive quotes for a metal detector for the town court security, be resolved that the town board authorizes the purchase of the metal detector from Metal Detector LLC, the lowest response, in the amount of $6,600, including shipping.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. You can have those. Oh, I also have digital first.
Oh, okay. Just want to make sure I have them.
Yeah. So for the next one, I guess I technically probably should have put this as a discussion item, but I thought we could potentially adopt something tonight. The code enforcement office is having a hard time with scheduling meetings, consultation meetings with the code enforcement officer. So it's just a lot and they're not able to screen them. So they came up with a proposal that we consider adopting a fee for meetings. I think in my mind, that should be of like a certain length because people can talk to the code enforcement officer, but these are like scheduled meetings that are getting put on his calendar. So I've seen this in other towns before, where it would be like a meeting over a certain amount of time is this fee.
How long do the meetings that they're talking about last?
I think it would be anything over 30 minutes.
And what would you propose as, or what are they proposing as a?
They didn't have a proposal. I think what I've seen in the past is like $50. We don't have to adopt this tonight. I honestly, now I'm like, I should have put this as a discussion item.
What's the goal of the fee?
Well, 2 things. One is they have like an inspection schedule, right? And so when someone is on the inspection schedule, it's a little bit like a meeting where the code enforcement officer goes and is doing that, they're there doing the work. When there's a high volume of meetings that are happening in the code enforcement office that interferes with the inspection schedule, but the inspections are like covering the costs of that time, right?
Right,
So is the fee intended to reduce the number of meetings or is to discourage the number of meetings, or is it intended to compensate for time? And are these meetings that take place in the office, which can be scheduled? Or are they field visits by the staff to a location?
It could be either of the latter two. And I think I think formalizing the way that meetings can be scheduled is one thing. So right now, it's just lots of demands on time, without like a formal way of capping the meeting or making sure that it's a purposeful meeting, right? And then the second would be, I think the idea is, so, compensation for the time involved in prepping and having something that's longer than a quick office drop-in.
Well, I mean, I think that they can schedule meetings so that it's just not disruptive to their inspection schedule. And that there's no cost associated with that. I mean, I do agree that if something takes more than half an hour, that it's longer than just a brief consultation. As well as if the staff has to go out to meet somebody at a physical location, but I think that coming in at a regular scheduled time is not an inconvenience, it's their job.
Yeah, I'm not gonna support anything that has the purpose of creating a chill on the access of people to the code enforcement office.
And the way to ration that and ration or allocate that time is having a schedule that has office hours set
Yeah,
aside
that's
for this.
procedural to their.
That don't interfere with their inspection schedule. So if they say Friday mornings from 10 to 1 or whatever, is available for appointments of 30 minutes to discuss these items, then the way that a resident would ration that, or make use of that is basically like, say, a doctor. It's like it's sort of self-regulating with a schedule rather than dropping in and interfering with the daily routine.
yeah, I'm a little curious, is there a sense that people are going to meet frivolously and they're having conversations that aren't relevant to building projects? Because I tend to agree with Zali. I mean, that's the building department's job, is to have those meetings, and you can, like, if they're not available, they're not available. We just have to schedule people the next available time. If there's something else behind this, like we're looking to raise some revenue to help pay for software that's going to make the department more efficient, we should be upfront about that, but if it's just going in to ask questions for 20-30 minutes, I think it's also hard to time box it like that, because then you're gonna have people saying like, well, I thought it would be 20 minutes, but now we're at 45 minutes and I have to pay $50. I just had a question, like, I don't know, I just think it gets sticky. I'd be curious to know why they feel like they need to do that. Are they trying to dissuade people from coming in to talk to the building department?
I mean, maybe it would be helpful for board members to be present in the office and see that we need more staff in that department. And that's not something that we have budgeted, and they are inundated with phone calls. They can't do the processing of applications right now because there's so many calls and drop-ins and wanting to have, and it's hard, someone's sense of urgency around their questions is one thing, but other priorities in terms of projects and moving forward and steps in the process is like another.
but to me, that's a scheduling issue.
Mhm.
It's like they say, okay, open office hours are X to Z every day. And
First
call
come,
back
first
then.
served, yeah.
Because the rest of the time we're working on projects and trying to get some of the work done. I think that's a fair solution that doesn't impose a financial penalty or cost on the privilege of talking to them.
So I could see, and maybe it's not specific cases, but I could see some issues that have currently come up recently where someone is looking for a solution to a problem and coming with this, what about that? Can you and you know, where the department is going to be doing researching. Well, I don't know. Is that allowed in state law? Do we need to look at that from this type of the regulation from a building department perspective? You know, in that case, if there's a lot of, or if there's multiple outliers like that, where suddenly something that's not an active application, but it's kind of like trying to find a solution to a problem, which is then taking up time in the department, you know, 6, 7 hours, 8 hours researching things, then I think that's a reasonable request. But to me, 30 minutes, you know, for a single application is not egregious. If a single applicant or a single project is taking up in excess of 2 hours of time, then maybe there should be some kind of additional fee associated with that. But if we want to do something like that, I would favor something where it's really like, okay, this is sucking up time in the department that is needed to do other enforcement actions or, you know, process applications. But 30 minutes to me, like, I
Okay,
think,
30 minutes was just me throwing
Yeah,
a,
so-
like, there should be a minimum that's not charged,
Yeah.
so.
but I don't want to create a situation where people feel like they have free unlimited access. Like, I'm just going to ask 20 questions until I get an answer that works. And it takes up 8, 10, 12 hours of the department when they're not doing other things. So I think there's a happy medium, and we should protect them from that kind of excessive amount of work that's not covered by application fees. But I'd like to just understand better, to your point, like where they're getting hung up, like what types of applications is this happening, or what kinds of meetings are doing that. And I take your point. I can go talk to them and get a better understanding too.
I mean, I think it's sort of I think it's everything. It's both, you know, we can get them a panic button and the body cams so that when they're telling people that, no, you can't talk to anyone, it's not time for that, and they get irate, that they have that recourse. You know, right now, it's just a very busy office with a very full schedule. Things are getting scheduled out 1 to 2 weeks in advance. No one wants that when you're doing a building project. And getting on the inspection schedule, like when you have a building permit, right, that's in process, you have 3, 4, 5 points of inspection that once you get to a point, then you need to call and have the code enforcement officer present, right? So every permit is gonna have this, you know, and so they are their week is completely scheduled. I think it's the expectation, you know, I can talk to them about setting why they don't feel that the boundaries they've put in place with their scheduling is effective. I think that part of it is the, you know, the emotional reaction to not being able to being put on a schedule like weeks out too. So it's not just like, oh, they don't know how to manage their schedule. It's, you know, they're dealing with.
But that's, I mean, that's every city in the state has the same issue. Whether it's the city of Kingston or whatever, so it's a matter of managing expectations of people who are seeking these permits, and done. It's like, it can take some time to plan ahead.
Right, and I
Rather
think,
than calling the last minute, saying my cement truck's coming tomorrow, I need my cement forms inspected tonight.
but that's also how the building world works. I mean, I think those are just the clashes of bureaucracy and, you know,
Mhm.
how industry works. I think part of managing expectations is saying that having an hour-long consult with the entire building department has a cost to it. So I think that's the, you know, there,
But that's a different issue than, you know, can you send an inspector out to go look at my concrete forms before the cement truck comes tomorrow? I mean, you're talking about, what you're talking about when you talk about the consult is more of a consultative, you know, idea bouncing session rather than here's what I've done according to code, I need it to be signed off on. And I think that I think that managing expectations, if people are expecting that the 2-hour consults is a valid way of addressing that. And for excessive projects, you know, charging for that research time and that consultation time. But I think just as an ordinary means of arranging the schedule and lightening, you know, what their workflow is, I don't think that's an appropriate way of doing that. I'm talking about the fee.
I mean, are they able to triage right now? Across where the projects are in terms of it's just begun or it's very, very, very advanced?
they do have, there's both like projects like you're talking about, but there's also things like shutting down a multifamily rental unit, like those things also, like it's just more, you know, it's just, they have more than they can reasonably do in the time expectations that are on the department, not just the public's, but I think just sort of standard.
And how much of that is sort of catch up versus what would be the ongoing run rate once they are caught up with all the stuff that they've been trying to catch up with over the last year and a half? And with the new building inspector and code enforcement officer, et cetera. So how much of this is pain caused by a learning process and the catch-up process versus ongoing run rate type activity?
It's hard to say, because this is the first time we've really had someone running the department that is focused on the like fire safety kind of, so it's hard to say if it's catch up or just someone who is able to find those things. So I'm not sure you're gonna like get through like a bunch of issues that are related to like fire safety and then they're never gonna happen again. And then the building schedule is like building permits and permit schedule is just the rate of those is what it just is always increasing in our town, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, I can go back to them with the kind of feedback about, you know, managing the meetings in a different way without imposing.
It's also getting a better understanding of what exactly the problems are and how they're, I mean, if they break down the types of problems so that we can sort of help them figure out how to address them rather than coming up with a blanket solution of a fee to address all the problems.
Well, I think that's not at all what I'm saying. I think this is one idea to lessen the load. We also we authorized our code enforcement officer to work 10 hours of overtime a week. We are trying to hire a part-time clerk for the office. My clerk is working in their office right now. We have code enforcement software on the agenda. They've sent us lots of requests for how to like look at and charge for violations and redo the fee schedule. So it's not, you know, this was just one thing that I'd seen a couple of other towns do, and they said, that they were feeling like it was, you know, these meetings are taking up a lot of time and it's, you know, unsure how to really be able to manage the time and how, you know, that I hear what you guys are saying about access, but when you are time resource poor and there's no way of getting people to like ask a question that could be answered by anyone in the office, by anyone other than the code enforcement officer, like that can be frustrating. Like, you know, so I think, you know, I can go back to them with the,
Yeah, I mean, I think what would be helpful is if we get a more comprehensive discussion from them of what the issues are. So that we, rather than dealing it with it piece by piece, so that we can come up with something that's more comprehensive.
Yeah, or maybe if it's something like a research fee or like a basic determination or going in there with like a use question or here's my project, is this workable? I think is covered under the responsibilities of the department. If it's similar to what the planning board is proposing, which is like an initial conversation, say, okay, here's the property, here's what I'm thinking, can you help me workshop this? And it's involving all of the members of the department and it's like a full-on meeting. I think if we can define specifically like what that type of meeting is and why that's different from normal day-to-day operations, I think it's reasonable to have some fees associated with that. For example, similar to what the planning board is proposing, which is, okay, this is, you have questions about the project, it's a non-standard project. We should have a way of covering the costs associated with that if it involves the entire department. But because I know, like I've talked to them and sometimes they're chasing down questions and trying to do all kinds of research and looking at building manufacturers and that takes time and obviously they have other things that they need to be doing, so. I just think I don't want it to be like a generic, if you need to meet with them for 30 minutes, and I know that's just an example. But I think we should define and understand what this larger thing is, and then we can associate fees with it.
okay, I thought I submitted to you guys the sort of notes that they put together that I had requested at our last meeting, but if I didn't circulate those to you, I will scan and make sure that you can review those ahead of the next discussion. So we're tabling the, I have not received the bid back for the voicemail bridge. That is being reviewed by the DOT currently, and we're waiting for them. So I think I told you this at our last meeting, but we might need to schedule a special meeting for that as soon as we hear back from the DOT. For the road maintenance agreements, I have.
Where's the first one? Alton Lewis?
In the drive, you mean?
No, what road is it?
Oh, what's the location? Oh, let me pull up the file.
Lower Whitfield, 95.
Yeah.
So 95 Lower Whitfield Road. So the comments that Mary Lou had were really, just technical, grammatical.
Okay.
So
No,
nothing substantial.
Then I'd like to introduce a motion that the town board approve the road maintenance agreement for the project identified as Alex and Amy Lewis minor subdivision is reviewed and approved by the attorney for the town.
Okay, I'm sorry, can we add with attorney comments incorporated?
Well, it says as reviewed.
Well, I received her comments back after I drafted the agenda.
Okay,
So I just want to include, so I have amendments to the road maintenance agreements that I got from her today.
Okay.
So these, I can tell you what they are. So she like adding simultaneously here with on the second whereas.
but wouldn't that all fall under as reviewed and approved by the attorney for the town?
I guess I would think that it would be as reviewed, or with her comments incorporated. Unless you're saying,
I think it should include with the comments incorporated, because the version that we have
Okay,
does not have.
then I motion to include with comments with the attorney's comments incorporated.
Second.
any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstain, motion carries. So the next one I have to do as two separate resolutions. Because we'll do the bond and then we'll do the RMA. So.
Any substantial comments from the RMA?
Yes.
The town,
Well, here, I'm gonna do these because I literally just got her emails. Like, and I just printed one copy out.
Okay.
So let me just grab. So I'm gonna make one resolution for the bond, so I'll make a motion that the Town of Rochester Town Board approves the amount of the bond of $182,635. And that's it. So do I have a second? Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, motion carries. They then need to send us the form of the bond, and we also have to approve the form of the bond, but they only sent us the amount. Okay. Then for the RMA, we do not want to sign off on the town having the ability to undertake the maintenance of the roadway. So she is, for the dignified dwellings to add the same simultaneously here with on line 4 after Ulster County Clerk's Office. In paragraph 3, add at all times and in all weather conditions after the word lots in line 3. And then remove the edits in red in paragraph 3 with regard to the town having the ability to undertake maintenance of the roadway. Paragraph 4. At this time, there's no law that would allow us to roll over the expenses outlined in paragraph 5 onto the tax bill. But as it says, to the extent allowed by law, I'm comfortable keeping that amendment in red just in case such law does exist in the future. Paragraph 7, line 2, remove the words and the town and replace with approved by the town of Rochester by town board resolution. So those are the edits for that one. So I'll make a motion that the Town of Rochester Town Board approves the road maintenance agreement for the dignified dwellings subdivision as reviewed by the attorney for the town with her comments incorporated.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstain, motion carried. we're tabling this background check contract because we need more time
Yes.
to review it. But she did want me to ask you guys if we should have Brian review that because it deals with labor.
I mean, it couldn't hurt.
Instead of her.
Sure.
I'll see if he's,
Yeah, why don't we check his availability?
Okay. um. All right, so I'll make a motion that the town board authorizes the town supervisor to execute the contract addendum with Atlantic Tomorrow's office in Wells Fargo regarding courthouse copier lease agreement as presented with the following amendment that the location be changed to Ulster County.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstain, motion carried. So I don't have the resolution for the town road speed limits. Also, I think we should try to get something together for the workshop meeting with exactly what we want to ask in terms of lowering. We could just request that we lower the speed limit to 25 townwide. But I don't know how effective that's gonna be. Okay, and then. So we're skipping everything else except Alexis, is that resolution ready?
It's ready, but I was hoping that, Mary would weigh in on the issue of whether or not, like, the liaison counts as, towards the 9-member limit. That's the only thing that I think is kind of holding up everything.
I think it's I think a liaison wouldn't necessarily, but if like you were appointed officially, it would count
Appointed.
as a
Well,
voting member.
right, like, I don't think, because when you asked me to do it, it wasn't like everybody else that's on there went through the same process, so being appointed as a liaison is not the same as being like a voting member. Like, I think what everybody wants to understand is like the voting is not like a super important part of that committee right now. So we don't want it to like hold up anything. So it's not important to me as being liaison to that committee to vote. It's just not. So I would like obviously like to continue being the liaison to that committee, but I don't have to be like a fully voting member, if that makes sense.
Oh, okay. The question I think that we were on was that Climate Smart requires that there be public officials
Mhm.
on the Climate Smart Committee. And if ECC and Climate Smart are the same thing, then you or another public official would need to be appointed to
That-
the ECC officially.
Appointed towards the 9.
Yes.
That would count.
Yeah,
And that's what Mary Lou had decided.
yes. Yeah, that's the point that we were,
I mean, I think that we're under the 9 limit, blind person limit anyway, so it's not like I don't think it's a limiting factor.
well, if you want, we could table this till our workshop meeting and then we can do all the appointments and the resolution.
That was the other thing, so
All at
I needed
once.
the list with all of the appointments, so we could just double check it with both the committees.
Okay,
I can get the names, but I didn't have the key. Do you have everybody's term limits or?
Yeah, we have a spreadsheet.
Okay, thanks. So then I wanted to double check with the committees and just get everybody to sign off. But if the rest of the board looked over the resolution and sees nothing wrong with it, then that's all I have, except for, there was one comment from Jim saying he just wanted Mary Lou to double check that we were compliant under Article 12F, the general municipal law. in New York, which, I just briefly looked at it. I think it's fine. But just to kind of check off on that.
Article,
Yeah, here you can have this copy.
okay.
And that's just about New York State formation of, like, climate committees.
Okay. All right, so we will do that resolution and then we'll do the appointments at our workshop meeting.
Yeah,
And then all those appointees the new appointees will need to take an oath of office.
okay, we don't need their letters of interest or anything like that?
No, Stacy has been in contact with everybody.
Okay, with everybody,
Yeah.
all right, great, thank you.
Okay, so discussion items, so. I feel like we covered,
Did you want to do?
oh, yeah. Sorry, I'm forgetting about that. So we have a second public comment portion of the meeting. Yes, Barbara?
First of all, I just wanted to say that two comments. One, sounds to me like the code enforcement office. You're asking them to do a full-time job on part-time hours. So I don't know if they're there from 8 to 5, 5 days a week. That's, if they are, then my comment is inappropriate. He's probably taking his head. My other comment is, as far as the comments about Charlotte. Since she is not here, I did notice the last meeting that you waited 10 minutes late starting the meeting. Obviously, she did not inform you she wasn't coming. That might be my presumption. And the fact that she's not here this meeting, did you know she was not coming and why? And that I plan on contacting, I'm not gonna assume that she wasn't here. I'm not gonna assume she watched Zoom. I will personally contact her by phone. And if I can't reach her, then I will send her an email so that she will know exactly how I feel and what I said. So I will do that. So, and we'll see if she's here the next meeting.
All right. So I'll move on to the discussion items. I just wanted to talk about Board of Assessment review quickly. We did receive a resignation, so that means there's a vacancy on the board. We do have 4 members, I just wanted to get the feel of the board about whether we should rush to try to have a full board or.
It might be a stretch to get it all lined up, because what we want to do is advertise and interview, since this is a adjudicatory board. And given the time constraints, it might be aggressive, but I think that for this grievance day, it might be aggressive for this grievance day, but I think that we should fill the vacancy as soon as possible so that we don't get stuck in the same position next time around.
Yeah, the only way I think that's a good idea is if we had this perfect candidate that wanted to step up, that has done this job before and was ready to slot right in with this board. Beyond that, I think it's inflammatory to try to rush that.
I mean, I think we need to make an effort to have a full board, given all the sensitivities around this.
I'm sorry, say it again?
I think we need to make an effort to have a full board if we can. If we want to solicit additional people who are interested, and we have to do a special meeting. I don't know, Aaron, if you could support that, but I think it's, if we can get somebody, I know we only have 1 week, but I think it'd be beneficial. I don't know if we've talked to the BAR, what their feeling is running it with 4 people, but
They feel that they're adequately staffed to do it with the 4 people for this year.
Yeah.
I think they also, I spoke to Marge, she's felt that adding a second person at the very last minute would be disruptive.
Yeah, I feel that it's very unfortunate that this happened. But this appointment would be in a seat that expires 2028. So it's not like we're just appointing someone for this one. However, it's very unfortunate because this is a very significant grievance day. And any conflicts that any board members have is just gonna mean, you know, that they would be reduced to 3. So it's just gonna make it difficult, I think. In that if those issues come up, but I agree that you know, it's not about having just someone sitting there. We wanna have the right. We wanna be appointing people that we really vetted in the same way.
And have had the time to go through the training.
Yep. Yeah, so I talked to Mary Lou because I was a little concerned that maybe we like had to. Which is one of the reasons why I put it on the agenda, and she said that we did not have to. Like, it's not considered like. So. You're the odd one out this time. Okay, so I wanted to review where we're at with the code
So
enforcement.
conclusion is to appoint someone after grievance day.
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry, I was saying.
Yeah, sorry, that is the conclusion of that.
Okay.
So for the code enforcement, software selection, we issued, an RFP that closed May 8th. We have 3 responses that we've received. The board wanted to have involvement in the decision making. So what I wanted to do is the code enforcement office and myself have met with the 3 vendors. And what I wanted to do is then just offer or do intros with any board members that want to set up meetings with the vendors to check the programs out yourselves.
Yeah, we have 3.
I know you and Charlotte had said that you wanted to sit in on meetings. But I think the best thing to do is have you guys set up.
Yeah, that's fine, I can do that.
Okay. Did anyone, Alexis or Zolly, are you interested in that?
I can add no value.
Okay.
I mean, I just have some privacy questions that maybe if I can just submit a couple of thoughts, and then I don't think I need to sit in on meetings as long as they're covered.
Okay, so so for that, if you have questions you want asked of every vendor, typically what we do is we would put that like on letterhead and then circulate it to everyone so that they all respond to the same set of questions. So I'd be happy to execute that if you want to get me those. Okay. And then I'll just set up an intro.
What's a deadline that you want for that?
Well, I think it would, if we're able to try to make a decision in 2 weeks, but if not, I really want to do this by our first June meeting. Because it takes about 8 weeks, 8 to 12 weeks for the onboarding of these programs. Okay. And then I think we talked about the code enforcement office priorities update at length. So I think maybe I gave these out as paper, but I will circulate these, the sort of information the code enforcement office had put together for me for our last meeting regarding their operations and time and things that they've been identifying and want help with. Okay. Updated lease agreement with the town of Rochester Food Pantry.
I talked to them, they're okay with the draft. They had, they just need, their chair just needs to review it, but I don't anticipate any problems, so I think that there won't be any substantial changes, it'll just be minor cleanup.
Okay, so to adopt at our workshop meeting then?
Yeah.
Or- Okay, one question I wanted to ask, mostly your opinion, but the whole board. We had a conversation about just like the boundary between the pantry operations and when there's like conflicting programming. I think we came up with, I think the language in there is great. Now that we have the playground equipment, we're keeping the gate closed. And the gate didn't used to be closed, but they did have a policy that when the kids were in the back, there couldn't be any through traffic. So no vehicles driving in. And I think that's clear to most people, but I think they've had a little bit of some,
We can clarify that.
but I don't know if we should clarify it in the lease or just clarify it. Like, I just wanted to get your,
I don't think we should do it in the lease, but I think we should do it as a general understanding.
okay, that was what my sense was, because they should have access to their back door at all times.
Yeah,
But
I wasn't aware that they drove cars back there.
if they'll drive into the gate and when there's kids right there playing,
Yeah.
they've had a policy, and I think it's just, and I said I'll put a sign on the gate, but I didn't wanna like pop a sign on the gate and then they'll be like, what's this stuff?
Discuss that.
Okay. Um,
Gate's not locked or anything. It's just closed.
it's locked.
That makes it, that sort of makes it self-solving problem.
So the MOU for the close for free, did you have a draft for that?
Yeah. I think we should probably have Mary Lou look at it. It's pretty basic. See if I can find it here. Discussion item E. Let's see. So I made it with, the individual who's been organizing the fundraising for the shed. I don't know if we should have it be with the organization, if the organization even has any formal designation, or if we should have her sign on behalf of the shed. Yeah. I'm saying that the shed is going to be purchased on behalf of the group and then donated to the town upon delivery and installation. Does that align with what you were expecting? I think that's what they were saying they were willing to do. On installation, it's going to be sole property of the town. Group and its members shall have no ownership, interest, claim, or right to remove the shed. They have town grants group a revocable license, so we have the ability to take their the agreement to use the shed away if there's any need the town has to do that. There's no lease, tenancy, or any property interest that the group has with the shed.
So risk of loss is fully ours.
Yes, that's how it's currently phrased. Used solely for the operation of the free clothing exchange program. Group shall have exclusive operational use of the said shop, subject to the town's right to access the shed for inspection, maintenance, or municipal purposes. I currently have access 7 AM to 7 PM, 7 days per week, unless otherwise approved by the town. However, access will not be available while the town's after-school program is in session. Currently I put 3 to 5:30, Monday through Friday.
Yeah, we should talk to the recreation department about that, because there have been did want to make sure that there were clear guidelines around
Yeah,
that access.
let's just get there, what hours of access they feel
Yeah.
comfortable with. Clothing and related materials may be stored in the shed. The town shall not be responsible for loss, theft, or damage to any stored items. They shall not store hazardous materials or refuse, use the shed for habitation, install additional structures, utilities, or storage areas without town approval. Not make any modifications to the shed, including electrical installation, structural changes, or additions without prior written approval from the town. Town Highway Department, I wasn't sure if this was the case, shall assist with site preparation and placement of the shed. Did they?
I don't think we need to put that in there.
So you think we can remove this?
But yeah, I'm not gonna put that into an agreement with them.
That we're responsible for the maintenance and repair of the shed. How do you feel about that? I think if we're taking ownership of it, it's reasonable.
You know,
So my general feedback is that, thank you for drafting this. I think one thought that I have is if we could frame the MOU more around the arrangement that we have with them using the community center, generally speaking, and outline in that agreement a cleanly, like a standard of leaving the room and you know, that sort of thing, and like garbage removal and like just those really general things.
the way I'd handle that is I would put it in the MOU. A phrase that says that the town of Rochester will provide access to or provide use of the community center subject to rules as may be adopted by the town board from time to time. So that you're not outlining what the rules are now, but
Right.
you have the right to.
Yeah.
Those rules in.
And then I think I think they should be more responsible for this shed while the arrangement that they are
What they're
using
using.
the community center is in effect. Does that make sense?
Like you're saying, including repairs and.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because it's really for them, and them saying, we'll leave it here when we leave is just. I feel like I don't wanna go too far in saying that we own this. I don't know if what I'm saying is. making
Yep,
sense.
okay. Do we want to require any general liability insurance or? How do we want to handle insurance for?
I think we need to make sure that our insurance covers this use, and if our insurance covers it.
What is their legal status?
They-
The unincorporated association?
Yeah.
Yes. Do they have a name?
It's just volunteers. So,
Can you run that down or do you want me to?
I would write it down.
Some indemnification language. Use of known risk. So I put a term here. I don't know if we want to have a term. Put 3 years as the initial term.
Of the agreement,
Mhm.
that sounds, I think we should have a term,
Yeah.
because we.
Waiver
Termination.
of jury trial?
Termination for cause, fact that if they cease using it. The agreement can be terminated. And we retain the right to use, repurpose, or access the shed and property for municipal purposes with reasonable notice. And I think that's it, so I can go back and make the specific changes for use of the community center, but.
And then you wanna submit it to the MOU?
Yeah.
Okay,
See if there's any numbers.
great. Thank you. Any other comments about that? Before we move on? Okay, the draft body camera policy. Michael, you presented a new version today
Yes.
after you spoke with our special counsel, Brian Goldberger. Did you want to walk us through?
Yeah. Discussion.
Okay, so I know, and it reminded me that last time we had talked about this applying, including the constabulary. But when I spoke with Brian, there were other considerations he had in terms of requirements for retention and other specific laws outside of some of the laws governing things like FOIL, that he felt like we needed to include there. And so my recommendation, or what I told Brian, was I would come back to the board and say, let's look at this policy from the perspective of code enforcement and building department, because I think they have an immediate need to have body cameras. That they're, and they want to do that specifically for when they're out in the field. And then we can always have Brian, and I've already requested that he make edits specific to incorporating the constabulary in this, any additional language. So I made some modifications. A lot of what he had was making sure that there were shoulds changed to shalls or musts, to make sure we know specifically when it's required for people to have body cameras activated, when it's required for them not to have them activated, and changing some of the discretionary instances. So if you look at this version, I've accepted the previous changes. You can see I've removed the language about constables, constable-specific uses. It made it clear that it's a requirement that they only utilize body-worn cameras that are issued by the supervisor's office. The supervisor's office is the authorized office in terms of monitoring those equipment, ensuring that the footage is being properly taken care of, reviewing footage. Requirement that audio is always enabled for recordings. I changed the discretionary basically to say if or when the body-worn camera is activated, if there's a need to turn it off because of privacy concerns, they either have to state on the footage why they're turning it off, or provide a written explanation why they were deactivating it if they were in a situation that was potentially private or in an area where.
Is there a time limit on that?
For them to have it disabled, or for them
No,
to
for them
provide.
to notify the writing if.
Yeah, no, that's a good point on the writing side, so.
And Brian approved that?
He had looked at this previous language, but he said, he was saying, don't make it clearer that it's not discretionary. If you want them to have it on, then they should have it on.
Right.
But this language was in the original version that was in there. It actually had more situations where they could deactivate it.
Okay, but he approved it as it is now?
He
or-
hasn't, he has this version, but he hasn't gotten back to us, so if we don't want, if we
Okay.
want to table this, then we should table it. Notification mandatory for scheduled inspections and when entering residences. He wanted us to make it clear that if they fail to record when it's required, it may result in disciplinary action. I added, however, longer retention is authorized for evidentiary purposes or to align with state law, just to make sure that we're not counter to other laws. And then he wanted to make sure that we were requiring ourselves to do annual refresher training by the manufacturer, and that it's reviewed annually and updated to ensure proper compliance. So I added that language in there. And I added an additional check for the employee to sign off on that they acknowledge they will only use body-worn cameras that have been issued by the supervisor's office. So Aaron, it sounds like you want to have Brian sign off on this, so.
I thought he did, what I was specifically asking about is when recording is discretionary section. Because like it says, restrooms, but like they inspect restrooms. So I think I think that's just the part where like either the default is to have them, you notify whoever you're doing the inspection on that you're wearing a body camera, but I think
So do you want to just remove the discretionary section?
I mean, I guess I'm just asking if we think it's clear enough.
I think there's no issue. I mean, he was for he was advocating for much clearer, like, it's on or it's off.
Yeah,
So
that's what I'm,
I don't think he would have an issue with us removing any section that implies that there's discretion of the employee. We tell them when it's supposed to be on and tell them when it's supposed to be off.
Wait, who does the training? Is it a vendor?
The vendors, many of the vendors do provide it, and that was his recommendation, was have them provide the training for it. So do you want me to take this back to him and say we want to remove the discretionary section entirely? And then we also have when it's prohibited or limited, so we'd have to get him to sign off on that.
Well, why don't we, if you guys are okay with it, start start the procurement process and get the training lined up, because I think the training should be lined up when we adopt the policy, right?
Mhm. Well, yeah, because we can't employ them. We have to.
Right. But I guess if Brian like signed off.
I'll
On
ask
it,
specifically about those. I mean, he didn't go line by line or send me red lines that I then incorporated. He told me these are the changes I would make. So if we want him to like specifically say, yes, I agree with everything, this text, then I'll talk to him about that.
You guys have any opinion on whether we should vote on it tonight or async, figure the training out and make sure that it's, all right, so I
Sounds
will
like
get the
fine.
training figured out.
I mean, do you have vendors lined up that you want to?
I've been looking, but I don't, it doesn't elevate to the level of needing to get quotes for the cost. But if we're saying we want to have a training lined up.
So I hear that Axion has a New York State wide contract.
Axon?
Yeah,
Yeah, they do.
you do.
Uh-huh.
Do they also provide training?
I know, I'm looking into them for something else, and I know they provide the training for that.
Yeah.
But I can see about the body cameras. I have like a call in with them, so I can ask.
A package deal?
Yeah. But yeah, I actually have been in touch with them, so I can just,
Someone that works for.
you do. But yeah, they're on state contract. Okay, any other matters from the board? Nope, okay. What we identified for the May workshop meeting is we're gonna do the climate smart resolution and appointments. We are going to the plan is to adopt the body camera policy, the lease agreement with the food pantry. And we will discuss the code enforcement software selection, the code enforcement office priorities. And there are some things that we tabled tonight that I'm hoping will get back to us in time to be on that agenda. And I'm also hoping we can talk about this speed limit. It's just that time of year now where resolution. I have some models, but I think identifying what our ask of the county and the state are is really what we need to nail down for that. So I'm gonna make a motion that the Town of Rochester Town Board enters into executive session at 9:30 p.m. for the purposes of discussing matters regarding the employment history of a particular person, matters leading to the appointment of particular persons, no discipline, and matters regarding the litigation between the Town of Rochester and Richard Miller.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, abstained, motion carries.